Good evening. Today is Wednesday, May 2nd, 2012. This is a regular meeting of the Brownsville Navigation District. The time is 6:27 p.m. Everyone please rise for invocation. Andres.
Father in heaven, we praise you and thank you tonight for your faithfulness, for your presence here with us. We rejoice in the plans that lie before us and all the discussions that we're having tonight. Father, would you guide us? Would you give us your wisdom and insight? Would you continue to bless our endeavors in the way we reach out to others? May they invest in our infrastructure and our facilities, Father. Thank you for your presence in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag.
Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Item 2, public audience, and no one has signed up at this time. So item number 3, receive director's reports.
I had one question and on the I saw one. I know you explained this the last meeting too, but have you heard anything else on that new system, the Harbor Sin that you mentioned? That was going to set us back 8 months on our study.
Basically, what the Center of Expertise, the Planning Center of Expertise, which is the PCX that I mentioned on the report last time, supposed to have a meeting. Well, actually, they did have the day before our project delivery meeting last week, but for some reason the item did not get on their agenda, so they didn't look at it. Everything that we know is the pressure from HQ and from division is that we're not going to use the Harbor Sim for the deepening. In other words, the deepening figures are already in. They're using the Harbor Sim for the widening, but that's already in progress. But what happens is that now they're going to meet on the 8th of this month. So by next PDT meeting, we would have an, which is going to be the 23rd, 24th of this month. In fact, we may have the PDT meeting here because I got an email today that they want to come here because they want to visit the sites and they want to visit the ship channel again.
So at that meeting, we'll know whether we're back on track or whether they're going to require us to.
Now, what we heard, and Eddie may have more information about that, but what we've heard from headquarters is that they are not in favor of redoing this with Harbor Sim. And I did ask the question at the PDT meeting about what the impact would be, and the economist said that the impact would be minimal. The difference between doing it the way we have it now, redoing it with the Harbor Sim is going to be very different. That's what they project.
It's detrimental in terms of more cost and obviously pushing it back 2014. That's unacceptable. I can tell you that we have vociferously registered our objections, and I think headquarters has heard those, and I know Randy and Glenn are on it, and we're on it immediately. But everything we've heard is that likelihood it's not going to, don't get all excited over it. But the only thing that bothers us about that whole process, if we need not worry about it, why do you need to discuss it even any further? And so there's always that element of doubt in the back that, you know, they're going to make an adverse decision. And we believe that if they do that, it would be considered an adverse decision to us in terms of pushing that timeline out. So we'll stay on top of it.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And then I just wanted to make a comment about Joe and his staff and how well the Seaman Center looked. All the work that you did on it, and for those that weren't able to attend the event, it was a very nice event, and everything looked very good.
I would like to publicly thank the maintenance crew for all their hard work.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
It looks beautiful, Joe.
Okay. Any other questions or comments of the directors? Okay. Thank you very much.
Item number 4, consideration and action on the following consent agenda items. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of April 18th, 2012. Item B, approval to authorize payments over $25,000. Item 1, Texas Port Association. This is a TPA, Combined Economic Impact Study, and the 2011 Port of Brownsville Economic Impact Study in the amount of $25,000. Item C, 1, Fortune Ferris Inc. termination. Item 2, Fortune Ferris Inc. new lease. Item 3, Fortune Ferris Inc. option.
I just have a real quick question. On item 1, which is the Texas Port Association, that's the $25,000, that's our portion of what we're paying as all of the port.
Well, essentially, what we're doing is paying $25,000 for economic impact study of the Port of Brownsville. We're going to get our own individual study. However, because we're doing collaboratively with other ports, the data we will glean, we will provide a TPA to do the general TPA report. But what we will get out of this will be our own report. And there is 7 ports that are going to be participating: Freeport, Galveston, Corpus, Texas City, Victoria, Port Lavaca, and Brownsville. So we want to get proceed on this. And with this check, we will be at, we want to get all the money in before the end of the month so we can start in June and have the money in hand so we can proceed. And Martin is on call to start. So,
Right.
Betty, and on C option, number 3 option, that one, if we get somebody in the future to get there, they have to show us that they're going to build something, right?
And that's why we only did a 1-year option. At the end of that 1 year, we told them we will revisit where you are at that 1 year. Now, at the end of that 1 year, if they haven't demonstrated evidence, we have options. We can either not renew it, or we can go to a right of first refusal, which essentially would give us the ability to say, okay, you can still hold on to it, but we're going to show the property. And so if somebody wants it, you have the first right to exercise that lease. But we're only going to do this for 1 year.
What I'm getting at is, let's say they take the option to lease it, but when they lease it, they need to develop.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why we're only doing it for 1 year, because we want to see, they're going to start with the 20 acres right now, and we want to see what their plan is for that next 15 before we decide to extend that beyond 1 year. So this first year, it's pretty much their option.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we wanted to request, to approve these 3 items, subject to them coming in, since we just got the contracts to them. We do not have the contracts ready for signing today, but it'll be subject to receiving the contract signed and the monies for these 3 contracts.
Okay.
And it's actually 2 contracts,
Well, the contracts and the termination.
but then that terminates the existing lease.
Right.
Okay.
Motion, Mr. Chairman?
Second.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Item number 5, consideration and action to acknowledge receipt of the audit of the district's comprehensive annual financial statement for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2011.
Thank you.
Mr. Barrera. You gonna give us a college course, or we're gonna give Cliff notes on that one?
I think most of my thunder's already been stolen from your workshop, so there's not a whole lot I can tell you, except it was a very good year. But let me at first, I guess, congratulate your staff and of course you all, because this is your first CAFR report, the first comprehensive annual report that's going to be submitted to GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, for their Certificate of Excellence. So now you will be joining Cameron County, City of Brownsville, and Public Utilities Board as the other entities in this area that hopefully you will get the certificate. I don't doubt you will. And it's been through a lot of effort on your staff's part, especially Debbie and Christina. And I know we pushed them, and they've probably been upset with us at times, but we knew how important this was, and if we don't do it quickly, we'd take forever. We finished our audit back in March, and we delivered an audit to Mr. Campiano on March 31st or April 1st, I think it was.
he needed one. We've taken that audit report and now we've massaged it and put it into a format that GFOA really requires, and it's grown exponentially with respect to how it's supposed to look. My staff unfortunately gave me a copy, I guess a working copy, because you got all the nice paper and the colored pictures and stuff, and I end up with stock paper. So I'll hopefully just want to tell you a little bit about this. I'm not going to go into the numbers in detail because I think you've heard enough of it already. But let me just kind of give you an idea of what this is and how it differs from the one you've had before. And the one that you customarily got from us, it pretty much had an MD&A, which it calls a management discussion analysis, and it also had, you know, the financial section and the required supplementary information. When you submit it for certification, it expands on it much more. You now have an introductory section that starts on page 1, and it kind of gives an oversight of the port itself, what you all do, where are you, you know, that kind of thing, and your hierarchy and all your the people and the organization itself. Then comes the financial section, which starts on page 17. And the first thing in that financial section is our audit, and I would be remiss if I at least didn't reference that. And you did receive a clean opinion, because if you didn't receive a clean opinion, you would be submitting to GFOA for certification. But anyway, you did receive a clean opinion, which basically is an unqualified opinion. And then after that, starting on page 21, which is probably the one you should, if you're going to do any reading at all of this report, you know, at night when you can't sleep, this is an excellent tool. Starts on page 21, and that's the management discussion and analysis. Now, this has been the same MD&A, is what we call it, as before, except that, unfortunately, Debbie had to put more verbiage in it, a lot more verbiage, because it's required. And it really goes through any and everything you can imagine about the port with respect to how the operations ended up, and it's also compared. Two things you may want to look at on page 23 is a condensed statement of net assets, your balance sheet. And that's very condensed, okay? It just shows current and other assets, it shows capital assets, total assets, your long-term liabilities, and then your fund balances. You know, you talk about your invested in capital assets, that's how much you have in property, plant, equipment, and then those other three items on the bottom. Now, obviously, the one that you want to look at is that last one, unrestricted, 7.394664. That's your unrestricted fund balance. It's unencumbered. It's all yours to do with as you please, and hopefully that's and that is a very good fund balance, healthy fund balance for this organization. And then the next page on 24 is the change in net assets or your income statement. Also comparative one year to the next. And as you heard in your workshop, you know, your vessel services obviously was there was a big increase there, $1.4 million, almost 1.5 for the year. Overall operating revenues at 12.9, and that was most of it. And your operating expenses also at 12 million, that only increased 182,000. So when you look at operating income, that shows there at 941, but that's after depreciation and amortization of $3.5 million. That's non-cash. And if you look at your cash position, one year to the next, for that minute, well, look over real quick. I'll show you on page 34. Cash flow. The cash flow statements kind of tells you where your cash came in from, you know, how much cash came into the organization, how much cash exited the organization. At the end, right in the middle, you'll see net increase or decrease in cash and cash equivalents, 2.368. That's cash. That's how much more your cash increased for the year. So again, it was a much healthier situation than what we, and all of that really is the operating income plus the depreciation and amortization. Then, after that is something called the basic financial statements. After you read all that, then you look at the actual financial statements, and that is, in effect, what you have, and it shows both the primary and, of course, the component unit, which is the BRG. And I'm not going to go through all these. I think you pretty much know what they are. And that's your actual balance sheet, statement of net assets, your statement of revenues and expenses for the year. And this is a little bit more in detail than what you saw in the MD&A. After all that, then there's the footnotes to the financial statements, which are fairly lengthy, and also for which, unlike what was delivered to you here in March, it contained additional disclosures that are required by GFOA. And Debbie worked on that as well. Right after that, there's something called RSI, or Required Supplementary Information. And that starts on page 69. The only thing that's required in that is the retirement plan for employees, and it's the analysis of the funding progress and how that's worked out. And there's also other supplemental information, and this year the only thing that was put in there was a schedule of operating expenses, which ties back to the statement of activities. Then comes the part that drove your staff probably crazy, and that was the statistical section, because this really took some time to get. A lot of this stuff comes from, the county has a lot of this information, the city does, but you all had to develop some of this as well. And you can see it's the subparts of that are the financial trends, the revenue capacity, the debt capacity, the demographic and economic information, and the operating information, all in Port of Brownsville, Cameron County, and surrounding areas. You have about 10 years worth of information here, and for bond agents and bonding, bond people, this is primo. This is what they're looking for. And finally, after all of that, in the back, somewhere around page 99, let's see how it's grown, is our other report, and that's on your single audit or on government. Because you are government, we have to report on internal control and let you know if there's any issues. If you have any grants that we had to look at, which this case you were not under section under A133, we would have to report any findings that we had. Though in this case, we didn't have to worry about that, and we didn't have to worry about anything else with respect to the government part. All clean. So that's it in a nutshell. That's it. I wasn't going to go through each and every. You can do that yourselves, but you all should be commended. It was a good year, as you've heard before. It was. You find yourself in a very healthy position. You now have a report that I think you should be very proud of, and only will be getting better, and you are in comparison with Port Houston, Port Corpus, or any of these others. So, congratulations.
Any questions?
There was no management letter, of course.
That's right, there wasn't there?
No, there was not. No, there was not.
Nice to know.
Yeah.
Debbie, you have anything?
You were not as upset with Tricia as you
More with me.
I would like to say, though, I think, kind of echo Mr. Barrera's comments. We've been talking about the CAFR for about 2 years now. And, it's been building in the last couple of years. And I hope that one of the great values for this is going to be that you have quite a bit of statistical information here. It's going to be useful in a lot of ways, that you can go back and look at, what happened the last 10 years. And it's broken down pretty in a lot of detail. It is going to be very useful, but I do, again, want to commend Debbie and Christina and the staff, because it did take a lot of time and energy. The part for us was, again, all the helping improve and make comments in this. But, what goes into it is the meat that you see here. And I just think they did a great job. And I know it's a big relief to have done this, but I also think it's a big accomplishment. And I know they recognize that, and I hope everybody else recognizes that. We finally got it done. Thank you. Thank you, Alberto, and everybody, really. Thank you.
Okay.
Carlos, I just had a question on page 69. I know you ran through that, but in layman's terms, the analysis of funding progress, can you kind of just summarize that, what that means, and the table actually
You would have to ask the hardest question. Let me just tell you what all this is about.
That really flew by me.
Back about 3 years ago, GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, required disclosures of entities, municipalities that were covered under, had pension plans and were required, not only pension plans, but also post-retirement benefits. Now, in this case, I believe, this is only the pension plan, correct? This is only pension plan. So what it's basically, all this is saying is that it wanted some information. It wants to disclose information to determine exactly where you stood with respect to your actuarial studies and whether or not you're meeting those needs. Which, if there was a problem, obviously not only would there be here, but it would also be on the face of the financial statement. And I believe what all this is just talking about is whether or not you are complying, is whether or not is there enough coverage, which by all means what we're talking about here there is. If you look at the last one, June 10th, the unfunded actuarial liabilities as a percentage of covered payroll at this point stands at 83%. So we're looking and saying, well, okay, it's following suit. On a more somber note, those entities that have, for example, post-employment benefits, talking about, if you say when your employee retires, you're going to cover their insurance for X amount of years and all that. Those are liabilities that before about 3 years ago were never included on the financial statements of the municipalities, cities, governments, whatever. And there was a big heated debate, including at the state level, as to whether or not cities had to include those. And what has happened over the last several years is that cities are recognizing, cities and states and governments, anything, are recognizing that this liability is real. And at some point, the municipality and the entity, the government entity, has to, in effect, recognize how much they're going to have to pay out. What's happened as a result of that is that you've had a lot of governments stop the post-employment benefit option. So health insurance up to age whatever, if they retire early, that it was paid by the district, that all of a sudden becomes on the financial statements, and how much do all that, they're saying we can't afford this. So that happened about 3, maybe 4 years ago. It was a big debate of the state, a very heated debate. If you look at the city and the county, those numbers are big. Right now, the GFOA and the GASB do not require you, in effect, to actually physically put the money away. Right now, what they have it is more as the pay-as-you-go system. So here's the amount, you pay it, you move, but you recognize what's out there, kind of. And I would presume that it's a matter of time before they may end up saying, you got to book it all. And you got to provide for it now. Because if not, you're fooling yourselves and you're fooling the public. You don't have a problem. But that's what that is. Hope it didn't go too far. I like teaching.
But in your opinion, right now we do have enough money to we're fine.
Well, we don't really offer any post-employment benefits, so.
Good.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Carlos. So we need a motion. That's an action item. Removed. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Item number 6, consideration and action on the following applications for lease rental rebates for 2011. Bedoli Group, Inc. in the amount of $26,762.94, and Transmontane Product Services, Inc. in the amount of $119,980.36.
We're going to table the Transmontane.
Motion, Mr. Chairman, to table Transmontane.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Okay.
And on Bedoli Group, this is actually for their 2011 year.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Deb.
Make a comment, if I may. One of the things we're looking at is the policies, and one of the policies we're looking at is the lease policies. And I know that in the consideration for changes, one of the recommendations will be to not do this anymore after 2012. So come future fiscal years, we won't have that. If the recommendation is accepted and if the commission chooses to accept that recommendation in the proposed lease policy amendment. So while we're not there yet, don't be surprised when you see that's going to be one of the recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks.
Item number 7, consideration and action to authorize staff to submit an application for the fiscal year 2012 Port Security Grant Program. Commissioners, it's that time of year again for the grants to come due. And John Sawicki is here if you have any questions, but we sat down with Chief Garcia and Port Director and went over some items that we need to finish out some of our projects. We're allowed to apply for 3 projects each grant year, and what we are proposing to do now is the first project would be the maintenance contracts on all the surveillance systems and the access controls. The first couple of projects we were putting in, the TWIC readers, the access controls for the gates. We've got a lot of cameras, but now we're starting to have to do maintenance on those, and so what we're proposing is to get maintenance contracts. The second project would be to fund, in your backup, there was a mistake, but it's to fund 2 security positions and 1 dispatch position, and to buy 2 response vehicles with the associated equipment. If this grant were received, those positions would be paid for under the grant for a period of 2 years, and then after that, then it would be the port's responsibility to pick up those costs. And the third project under that grant would be to replace some of the security fencing within the secured areas of the port. If you've ever driven around, some of it's pretty dilapidated, and the Coast Guard has cautioned us several times that some of the fencing is not adequate. We actually applied for this last year and it was denied, so we're going to try it one more time to see.
Yeah, this is a significantly watered down version of the last year's. Last year, I mean, we applied for like 7 miles. But in all fairness, we did it because we were encouraged to do that by the Coast Guard. In fact, the area command approved it and sent it up with a favorable recommendation. It did not get approved, so we're coming back under this grant with a scaled down version where we would at least address what we think is our more critical areas.
Have we ever requested funds for personnel before?
No, this would be the first time we would do that.
What kind of a match do we have on this?
25%.
25.
So our match is 100,000 to 400, or?
Well, we don't think that this grant will exceed the 400,000, but yes, it'd be 25%. Now, we can always ask for a waiver.
Waivers are probably not going to be
it's
granted.
probably not
I mean, I think realistically, if we look at this thing and we submit it, it's with the understanding that we need to be, if approved, we need to be prepared.
Let me ask you a question on the personnel. Do we need these personnel, or are we just applying for them because it's available? Because once they're on the payroll, they're with us for a while.
The chief is right out there, and he could probably answer that.
Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. In regards to your question, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a little bit of both. One, that it's available, and it's good to always apply for that type of funding. On the other part, I see is that if we, once we get the command center up and running, we're going to need personnel to monitor our cameras and definitely dispatch the calls for service. Maybe not so much here in the daytime because we'll have somebody there, but nighttime.
And I know, I'm sure at the police department in Brownsville, you had grants that funded positions. Are the employees aware that they're being funded by a grant, and that it could end, I mean, the grant's going to end in this case 2 years, and then...
In most cases, when we apply for funding of additional positions at the police department, most of them were for at least 5 years.
5 years.
Okay. In this case, I think it's 2 years, knowing that one of the conditions would be that we would have to keep them on for at least 1 more year. Then after that, it would be up to the board whether we just 3 years them on.
I can tell you that it is common practice. Some entities, like the university, have a lot of people funded by grants. And yeah, out of a matter of fairness, you let them know right up front. In fact, you put it in their job description. If this is funded by such and such a grant and you have no expectation beyond, I guess it's 1 year after the grant?
Yes, in most cases, that's what it is.
If you were to let it, I mean, assuming that whoever the board or the staff decides, or you decide you don't need these positions anymore, can they collect unemployment against the board if they were let go?
Yeah, they'd be just
like any other employee. Like any other employee after
and you would do that. Yeah, and you would do that different ways. I mean, as we're ramping up for this, I mean, anytime you have a vacancy, you evaluate whether you need to fill it. So, I mean, whether you wait till the end of 3 years or you simply have one less person you have on staff as a result of a vacancy, I mean, that becomes a moving target. But yeah, once they're employed, I mean, we're obligated to provide all of the same benefits that you would any other employee under both state and federal statutes.
Well, and just because they bring I mean, they're coming in as a security person. I mean, with the police, it would have been a little harder to, fit them in somewhere else. But I mean, as the, cargo operations continue to increase, the vessel traffic continues. I mean, every time there's a vessel here, a security guard has to go out there and check TWIC cards, or a police officer. And so as that increases.
That is where we would, want to take a position like a security guard position and utilize it on dock duties versus paying a full-time police officer, LEO, to be there and do, a small job, but pay higher expenses.
Well, what happened? Again, this is more of an educational purpose for me. Okay, you hire an individual as a police officer or security guard, and they quit after a year. You have to terminate them after a year. Do you get a redo, or you've lost that position under the grant?
A year.
I mean, let's say it's a 2-year position,
right.
And you hire somebody and they quit, or you have to terminate a period of time, 6 months or a year.
To the 2-year, but you can actually continue to hire that.
You can hire another.
You could transfer somebody else, an existing employee, into that slot.
If we'd have, say a security officer, in this case was somewhat a certified peace officer, and we were applying for LEOs without postal officer position, you could actually do it.
Okay.
If you met all the qualifications, to be a peace officer.
Okay.
But in this case, we're talking about security guards, just security officers.
Okay. Well, here it says 2 police.
It does.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you've changed
We
it.
did some more research. We went back and we changed it, so it will be security.
Security officers. Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much, Chief. Any other questions?
And all we're asking is authorization to submit the grant. I mean, no assurance that we're going to get it
No, the
approved.
grant's due on Friday, so tomorrow we'll get it submitted, and then hopefully we'll get it.
It's $400,000.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Item number 8, consideration and action to approve the request to open and fill employment vacancies in the Harbor Master's Office, Police and Security and Maintenance Departments.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, as we went through the budget process, there were certain positions that became vacant as a result of retirements. We've also had one position that's become vacant as a result of a resignation. And all of these positions were positions that are in a vital area of the port. At the end of the year, we had a retirement of a dispatcher. This year, we've had a retirement of a security personnel, and we had one retirement in the maintenance department. We've had a resignation in the police department. And then last year, we also had a change in the police department that we did not fill purposely because we did not have a chief of police here. And so now that the chief's on board, we really need to move and fill that position. So what this request is to allow us to fill those positions that have become vacant as a result of separation of employment. These are not new positions. These are positions that again, became vacant because either of retirement or voluntary termination.
And the funding for them is already allocated.
The funding for the
positions.
The police officer, the maintenance position, and the security are a part of current. The other two will be absorbed as part of the overall personnel cost. So when we come back at mid-year and make adjustments, you will see that will be one of the changes.
Secretary.
It will only be 2 people, though.
That's correct. That would be the dispatcher and the administrative position in the police department. And because those were vacant 12/31 of last year, that's the only reason.
Any other questions of Eddie or the chief?
Make a motion.
Okay.
We approve it.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 9, consideration and action to approve the final payment to URS Corporation for the Port of Brownsville Employment Benefit Study in the amount of $19,760.
Mr. Chairman, for Commissioners, This is the final payment on the work done by URS Corporation towards the, so it's including employment benefits into the BIH calculation. At the end, basically, they
This is part of the widening and deepening.
yes,
Okay.
basically, basically the benefits that we are going to be able to include are the benefits having to do with oil rig fabrication and repair, benefits that have to do with ship breaking and within transit cargo are not going to be part of the national economic development benefits of the for the study, which means that they won't figure into the calculation. They would, but they are regional benefits. So part of the report was that they are regional benefits. So that's that's the
okay, let me get this straight. The fabrication of oil, the oil rigs is something that it will be taken into consideration, but they will not take into consideration the ship breaking and the in-transit cargo. Okay. Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay.
Now, there will be benefits derived from it, but there
Yes.
will be in such things as transportation savings and what have you. But we were really keen on was trying to capture some way of capturing employment benefits in this whole deal, and I think, you know, we were largely successful as it relates to the large piece, which is the offshore rig manufacturing.
Well, great. I think that gives us a leg up on this thing, so.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, go ahead and adopt.
Second that motion.
Okay, we moved to second. All in favor?
All right.
Item number 10, consideration and action on a memorandum of understanding between the Brownsville Navigation District, Cameron County, and Keppel Amphils for the installation of a traffic signal on SH 48.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a project that has been under discussion for quite some time. What this memorandum does essentially is articulate the agreement between the county, the port, and Keppel Amphils as how we will proceed to all contribute towards the what we hope will be the installation of the traffic light. Now, this is just one in two pieces. I will tell you that this memorandum of understanding may get tweaked a little bit by the county when they see it, may get tweaked a little bit by Keppel Amphil, but it encapsulates at least what is my understanding of the agreement with my meetings with the county and my meetings with Keppel Amphil, that in the end, the installation and equipment that goes into this will be equally shared by the three parties. And right now, what that includes is the warrant study, which the county has paid for, the engineering design study, which is estimated to be about $21,000, and the actual equipment and labor of the installation is estimated to be about $56,000. So all in all, I do not see us contributing our share of more than $30,000 to this project. It's considerably less than when we began to look at this a few years ago, if you recall.
About 200 or 300 is what
it was. About $150,000. So.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we finally approve this.
Maybe I'll get to see it next few years.
This hopefully gets our partners moving on getting it done. If I mean, you know, we can't control what they do, but I mean, at this point, we're all in agreement that this is how we're going to do it.
Well, that's a huge step, then.
Yeah,
Very big step.
It's a long time
Because
coming.
that light in front of Amphil's really needs, it doesn't need to operate 24 hours a day. It does need to operate when people come in and out of there at those peak hours, because there's always accidents there. So I'm so happy
Who will
to
do
see this.
the maintenance on that, Mr. Campillo?
Once it's done, it's TxDOT is responsible for maintenance. Now, this is for the light only. All the work done inside the right-of-way is a result of any work done outside of the right-of-way or road construction. Whatever party is going to be responsible, they have to pay for that on their nickel. This is strictly just for the installation.
The light.
Yeah, and the state proposes to do this using their contract labor. So once everything's done, and there's another piece to this following this item, which is the advanced funding agreement, and the advanced funding agreement will only be between the port and TxDOT. This is kind of the side agreement with everybody else on we all agree to help pay for it. That's great. And district engineer has indicated that once the money's in hand, once everything's ready, once the design, engineering design is complete and approved, that they can move within 30 days to get their contractors moving forward. So I don't want anybody to think that in 30 days we're going to have a traffic light, because there's still the engineering work that needs to be done.
But do you think we'll have it before September?
Well, I think the goal is to try to get it done as quickly as possible. My meeting with the county today and asked them about the status of the engineering, and I was told this morning that they met with them last week, and the goal is to have the same engineering company that did the warrant to do the engineering design. So I'm hoping that next week, when we forward this to the county, it'll be on their agenda next week, and they'll also move it forward. Keppel has indicated they're ready to move. They're going to include it in their current year capital plan. They'll probably have some additional expenses because they want to do some more work inside the gate, but we're all ready to go.
Good, good news. Right.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
That's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 11, consideration and action authorizing Port Director and CEO to execute the advance funding agreement with Texas Department of Transportation for the installation of a traffic signal on SH-48.
This is the second piece to this. This is the instrument that would essentially be between ourselves and TxDOT saying, okay, once we have the money, once they have received the money, the engineering design has been done, they will use this instrument under their standard contract labor to go ahead and get the project done. But in order to expedite it, this is not an agreement between three entities. We will go ahead and do the agreement, but it is our plan to do this once we have the MOU done, money in hand, and then to proceed if there's, and so this is what the state needs to advance the project.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 12, consideration and action on memorandum of understanding between the City of Brownsville and the Brownsville Navigation District regarding the transfer of the Union Pacific Rail Yard to the City of Brownsville.
Chairman, members of the board, request this item be tabled.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 13, consideration and action authorizing the Port Director and CEO to work with the Brownsville Economic Development Council and the Brownsville Public Utilities Board to develop a framework for preparing a small area plan for the Port of Brownsville.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, we've been talking for some time about what is going to happen once the completion of the 550 project, and how is that project going to tie into some of the things that are going on around in our community. And one of those issues is that there are plans for other development, industrial park on 511, which is 550. The port's development of the SH 550 and some of the other projects that are ongoing. You know, part of the United Brownsville effort is to collaborate with all of the other entities to come together and to essentially have a plan that takes into account all of the diverse efforts that are going in. When you look at economic development, or you look at industrial development, or you look at logistics, you can't talk about that without the port. But you also have a lot of other players that are affected by it. So we had a discussion, we had a meeting. Jason Hills from the BEDC is here. We met with the Brownsville Power Utility Board. Chairman Reed was there. And we would like to proceed with developing a framework where the three entities can come together and address all of these development issues and how we can develop a plan to develop those areas. BEDC has done an area development plan for their industrial park. There's also another area development plan that is being done for the City of Brownsville downtown revitalization. We believe that in order to expedite the process of getting the port involved and looking at how we're going to come up with some plans and policy decisions, how we'd like to see the 550 area and the area north of the port development, that in order to expedite that the best way to do that is to develop a framework working with the BEDC, working with the BPUB to get this thing done. So what this item simply does is request your authorization for me to work with Mr. Hills, with Mr. Brusiak, to develop the framework, how we would do that, and then come back to each of the entities and say, okay, you know, this is how we would propose, this is what the plan will do, these are the basics of it. I will tell you that at this point, we would look to have BDC kind of take the lead, since they're that far ahead of us They've got a contractor on board, and to look to incorporate our 550 development, port development, into that whole process and move forward.
I'd like to ask a question. Is this going to take into consideration, I know that the county was working on or had put in a tax increment reinvestment zone along 550. Is that going to be incorporated into this plan?
I think you have to deal with all of the entities that have a vested interest and address those concerns. What the county has is a transportation, a TERS, but it's a transportation. And really, all they have done was identified a swath of land that says, as a result of this, if anything develops in here in the future and the van values, will capture that. It really is not a plan that looks at uses, what kind of growth is going to be in the area. It just simply assumes that there's going to be growth as a result of the 550, and we're just going to capture it. But yes, we'd have to take into account all of those project development features.
What is there a firm that is being used?
The BEDC is currently working with a firm called Mesa Engineering. Well, actually, they're not just engineering, they're actually land planners. They have experience not only in Brownsville, but they've also done stuff for the Alliance Park in Fort Worth, which is something that's appealing to us because we've talked about how we believe that logistics platform is so critical for the 550 and how it's going to tie into development inside the port, and really just as critical for promoting industrial development for the BEDC. So that's why, in order to expedite it, I think we would look to BEDC to kind of take the lead using their consultant, their contractor, to kind of help advance this.
This is an offshoot of United Brownsville. We have our land we want to develop. The EDC has their land they want. We don't want to compete. We need to work together. There's limited resources, and it's a good idea. It's a great idea.
It is.
And it's a long-term. I mean, there will be a long-term vision, and this MESA group seems to be quite reputable, very versed in doing this. And it was a very good meeting we had with PEB and the city and various entities to kick this off, and we'll just see where it leads us, is where it's going to go.
Jason is here. I mean, he can tell you, and from their experience and what they've received for the industrial park, how that value is real important. And I think for us too. I mean, we have this land asset. We need to start thinking about how we're going to use it and what makes sense. And hopefully, what I like about the plan, and he's shared that with me and I've reviewed it, is that it's not just about engineering. It's also about a basis for establishing policies on how we're going to, what is our desire to see that develop in the future. So, so it doesn't change from year to year. Yes. I mean, here's a format and a plan, and we can work with it.
That's what I was going to suggest right now, Eddie, and to Mr. Hiltz, is that in the framework that you are going to develop with the other entities, I would like for you guys to develop something, I'm not going to say a master plan, but a plan where this is what we want to do, Eddie, and for future commissioners in the port, the city, and at PUB, and they can take this with them and not have it stop 3 or 4 years from now and then have to get started again. We'd like for it to continue because we know we're not going to be here forever.
We envision the outcome is to actually give the port its plan. However, because of the other entities that are working, it would also take into account what the other, so it would be integrated to, instead of having 3 individual plans that may or may not mesh with the other 2 entities, it would have our plan, but it would already show how it would mesh with the industrial park development over here, with the PUB, and there's still even another component that we haven't even addressed, and it may be down the road, but it's going to be the airport, and how you tie all that in and create a whole logistics platform from the airport all the way down 550 down there. But we have been identified, and it makes sense, the cluster for heavy industry, for heavy manufacturing, and for multimodal logistics. And so our piece of that will give us our plan, how we envision seeing that development, but it won't be done in such a way where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Yeah. This is historic if it comes about, because you actually got the entities talking and planning together. That's never happened that I'm aware of, and it's.
What kind of money are we talking about spending just as a general budget as our share of this?
don't know at this point. I mean, that's part of sitting down and
That's
kinda-
something else that you
Oh,
would, you
yeah.
bring to us at a
Oh,
later.
yeah. No,
Right now,
this
you're-
is just to say, one, if we don't buy off on this concept, then why pursue it?
Yeah.
That's, and if we do, then we're going to develop a framework that says, this is how we plan to do it. We haven't met to say, you know, this is what we want in it, this is how it's going to look, this is how it's going to cost. We're just starting that process, but I think we felt it was important to get the buy-in right up front that we want to move forward on this.
That portion will come back.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, just check it.
Sure. It always does, Commissioner.
Well, I know, but just double checking.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
go ahead and take that.
I'll second the
Okay.
motion.
Move and second, all in favor?
Item number 14, consideration and action to accept proposals from Tank Industry Consultants, Inc. for design phase and construction phase engineering services on the North 1 million gallon steel elevated water tank repairs project.
Mr. Chairman, Board Commissioners, last year we asked Tank Industry Consultants, who's a company that's very reputable. We checked them out. They've done work for PND and for other entities that have elevated water tanks. They conduct seminars yearly, and we've attended some of their seminars for educational purposes. And basically, they performed an evaluation of both our north and south tanks. And prepared an estimate of what it would take to either repair or replace the tanks. The repair cost for tank number, well, I'm going to call it the north tank. The repair cost for that was a little bit over $1 million, but the replacement cost was $1.7 million. In conversations among staff, it was determined that the best way to go for that was to go ahead and perform repairs rather than replace the tank. Before the evaluation was done and before the estimates were turned into us, because the estimates were actually turned into us earlier this year, in preparing the budget last year, we made provision of $750,000 per tank for the repairs. But like I said, the evaluation, at least for the north tank, was beyond that. So the decision was to focus on the north tank first. And one of the things that I do need to mention that I did not include in my agenda item is that in discussing the estimates with the consultant, the estimates are conservative. So we anticipate, or we hope, that we're going to get numbers that are going to be more comfortable than these. But he did emphasize, I'm trying to be as conservative to make sure that we are on the high end with the estimates, so that when we get the bids, our bids are within our budget. So what I'm asking for you to approve tonight is for us to engage Tank Industry Consultants Incorporated. They have offices in Houston, Texas, to prepare the plans. And if you had a chance to look in detail at the proposal, the plan development is approximately $15,000. And then they have also included in their proposal numbers for detailed contract administration, and that's the bulk of the amount that that they're showing in the proposal. So having engaged them for the evaluation, we would now ask that you engage them for the actual work.
When you hired them last year, what was the cost of them doing the
evaluation
analysis?
per tank was $6,000 for each of the tanks.
Okay. And why wouldn't we put this out for bid? It's almost $100,000.
Well, we can, but our recommendation at this point would be, since because of the fact that they're already familiar with the situation, they've already performed the evaluation of the tanks, they can go forward and do that. If you direct us to propose that, we can do that, and that's.
So they gave you an evaluation report, right?
There's a couple of things with that. One is that, we do have to do this. I mean, the Water Development Board is on our butt to move on it. Secondly is, Tank Industry Consultants, is very reputable. They do the work for a lot of for the PUB, I think they even did the work for El Jardín and what have you. This would help us expedite that we are moving forward. I mean, even when they develop the plans and so forth, we still have to do some budget amendment. We still have to bid it, and we still have to see what that's going to be. But this would allow us to obviously expedite the necessary repairs. They are familiar with it. They've already done the evaluation. They know what needs to go into the design, and it's not so much the design as it's going to be when we allocate the money to actually get the job done. It's the oversight of the repairs that is going to be the bigger part of this contract.
Now, this is consulting services. This would not go out for bids. What we would do, if we were going to do what you mentioned, we would have to request for proposals and go through a different process. It wouldn't be a bidding process per se. And as Eddie indicated, the bidding process would be once they prepare the final plans, we would go out for bids for the actual construction work itself.
So all they're going to do is evaluate the condition and the repair needs of both tanks?
They've already done that. We already done that.
6,000 for that.
What they're going to do is put together the bid specifications, the contract, everything necessary for us to go out and put it out for bid for repairing it. That's the
And then they're going
one
to
part.
supervise it?
Then the bigger part of it is once it's under repair, they are going to represent us in overseeing the repairs and the execution of the contract.
And that'll be for a total cost of 1.4, $99,000.
The engineering cost is $99,000.
Okay.
Yeah, the $99,000
construction
includes
cost.
the engineering design and engineering construction phase administration, but it's contract administration.
So, let me ask you a question. We're looking at spending somewhere around 60-something% of the cost of replacing this water tower to repair it. What is the lifetime expectancy of the water tower when we get through in comparison to building it, replacing it?
The life expectancy, based on the analysis that they did, because they did make a presentation of that in their analysis, the time expectancy of the repairs is approximately 20 years. A new tank would be up to whatever design we know, whatever.
Or if the $1.7 million.
Probably be more than that. It would probably be beyond that. I would say it could be designed to 30 to 35 years, but it would be beyond that.
But the tank is only going to last you as long as you maintain it. I mean, one of the issues is that, and this is one of the things that, you know, it's not in such a state of disrepair that we need to tear it down and build a new 20-year life of the repairs. If we keep it up, will be good. We'll come back in 20 years. Somebody's going to have to deal with going through this whole thing all over again. You know, same thing would be if you build a new tank. You're still going to have to come back 10, 15 years into it, evaluate it, make the necessary repairs, and extend its life.
So basically, they're going to take the tank and repair all the rusty places and sandblast it and paint it and fix all the valves.
And it's been done before at the port. This is not the first time we'll have done these repairs to the tanks at the port. But you know,
and Port Isabella is just they're doing it right now. And
the difference that you're seeing in the tanks that like this tank versus new tanks, if you notice, a lot of the new tanks, the stem is concrete. And then it's only the tank that's steel. All of these older tanks are all steel. So there's more into the repairs. If we were to build a new tank, we would probably look at a different design. And most of them, I mean, if you look at the new PUB and look at the new El Jardín, you know, the pedestal, the base of them, the stem is all concrete now. But you know, again, that's more money.
So if we were, for instance, when we open up 550, then we will probably need more water over there. And either PUB might furnish it, or we might furnish it, we don't know.
We don't know.
If we were, then we would have to build one that would probably have a concrete stem.
That's one of the reasons you're going to do an area plan for that development.
That's right.
What your utility needs.
The information that they did for that $6,000, do we have it?
Yes, we have two books.
And if we were to go out for professional services, we could give that information to the two who bid on it.
I don't see why not. We pay for it.
Right. And so, okay, so that's a cost we would not have to incur again.
But they probably didn't take that report.
Okay.
I mean, it'd just be like an are you giving a set of plan?
But you could put that in there.
Yeah, I mean, they would have say this is the condition of the tank.
Right.
But they may want to come in and do their own assessment.
Well, that'd be part of their due diligence. So, I mean, if we were to do this, what kind of turnaround time are you talking about, in your estimation?
The people that can do this at the level that Tank Industry Consultants can do, because Tank Industry Consultants is a nationwide company. You know, they're based out of Indiana, I believe, and they have offices in Houston and in other cities. I think you can see that in the documentation we have. The people that can do this on this level are not many, so we probably received 3 or 4 proposals. And I would anticipate a 60-day turnaround on something like that. If we had to do that, we would have to put it out for proposals, receive the proposals, go through evaluation, and then come back to you for you to decide.
So what kind of timeline? You said we were getting beat up by TCEQ?
Well, they've been honest to move on this. I mean, we've kind of put them off as long as we can. I mean,
60 days isn't going to.
No, it's not.
Affect us
But
one way or
I
the
don't
other.
think it's going to take us 60 days. I think you're going to probably take a little bit more time than that.
60 days would be on the optimistic side. It's 60 to 90 days. And, but I mean, that would be
The consulting firm that is doing work with PUB and these other entities, in your opinion, do you think that, their costs, are they reasonable in comparison to others?
Yeah, they're the ones that do the work for PUB and the other area entities on the tanks.
Well,
That's the specialty of theirs.
In this particular case, if you...
That's good.
Normally, engineering fees range between 8 and 15%. In this particular case, for $1 million repair, they're doing the design and construction phase for about 10% of the value of the construction. So I believe that that is well within range. I mean, it's very reasonable in my opinion. Again, we will do whatever the board directs us.
Yeah, that was my intent, just to find that out.
We feel very comfortable with this situation. That's what we feel.
My view is that that's a lot of money. I mean, this is a good company. I'm obviously, or Eddie's aware of them, you're aware of them. But I honestly, for $100,000 and maybe a 90-day wait, I'm more comfortable going out for bids. But I mean, I'll do whatever the board wishes to do. I mean, I'm fine.
But it wouldn't be bids, like I said. It would be.
Statement qual, I apologize.
Yeah.
Bids, that's
But
not
you
the right
wouldn't know
word.
how much that company was going to charge until you picked them.
You'd select them, then you'd have to negotiate what the fee is.
And it could be higher.
Well, we know what the fee is.
Well, because this company, we
Because
asked
this
them for a
company-
proposal to tell us, okay, this is what you're doing. We didn't,
After their evaluation.
I mean, if it would have been tank consultants and XYZ consultant, we would have asked them all for proposals. You pick them based on their qualifications. Once you've made that selection, then you negotiate the fee.
Actually, you can ask for them at least a schedule of prices, and you get that in the proposals. You can do that. But it's not competitive bid, low bidder wins.
No, I understand.
But you can ask for prices in the proposal.
So,
And we do that typically with engineering services, but
with this, if we went out for proposals, would this firm be obligated to maintain the price that they're offering now?
no.
I don't know what they would say.
I would think so.
No, because they have the cost of
They wouldn't even be obligated to submit a proposal. That would be up to them. But no, they would not be bound to this price. Might go up, might go down, they might not participate. Can I just, to tie up this discussion, the law says you have to pick an engineer based on demonstrated competence, and then you have to pay them a fair price. And what I hear Mr. Capitanno and Mr. Chavez saying is that there's no question that they've demonstrated their competence, that they're comfortable. The question is, does he believe he has enough information to say that this is a reasonable price? And if he says yes, then legally you're protected, but that doesn't mean you can't choose to go out if you think that's appropriate.
Okay.
And so $99,000 is about 8-point-something% of the $1.1 million.
Which is within range.
What are normal architectural fees for something like that? And well, it's engineering, architectural, and oversight.
So that's what I was mentioning earlier. It can range from 8 to 15%, and this is at the, towards the
On the lower end
of that
of it.
range.
Okay.
So it's
That's
Well, see, because I don't buy engineering firms, services every day, so that's why I need to ask what the market is.
It depends on the type of project. These type of projects will tend to go on the lower end. But again, I want to tell you we're talking about design and construction phase services. When you bunch them together, it's usually the higher 15 to 16% amount. In this particular case, that's part of why we feel so comfortable with this number, because it's in the 10% range, including construction phase services.
But actually, it's less than 10%.
It's actually less than that.
Yeah, based on those percentages and then the reputation that the company has, you know, I would entertain a motion to go ahead and accept that as presented by staff.
You want to make a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then I'll second the motion.
Okay. And let me just ask one before I call for a vote. So let's say this comes in at $2 million the bid, just throwing out a number. Are they going to hold to a dollar figure, or?
No, the proposal is for the figure that you see.
Not even, that's fixed. It's fixed. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
The same would happen, Mr. Chairman, if the bids come in at $200,000, which I know they're not, but, I mean, if we were to get $200,000.
They're going to get the flat fee no matter what.
That's going to be
We're
their
going
fee.
to ask them to put together the bid specifications, manage the bidding process, evaluate the bids, and that's the lesser of it. The bigger issue, and the issue we think is the greatest value to us, because we don't have the expertise, is to supervise and oversee the repairs to the tank.
Okay.
They will be they'll manage the project and will be our representative on the project. And I can tell you that these tank projects are specialty projects, and I can tell you that I know both at PUB and the port has had horrible success with the contractor, at least one, who did these jobs. And so, you know, you do need someone who knows what the hell they're doing and can represent our interests in those repairs.
I know that there's one elevated tank at a city to the south of us that has no top, and it serves a dual purpose as a duck pond for local drinking water. So I certainly would not want to have that position.
Okay, before Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, I'm looking at their proposal, and I may be missing it, but I just want to get some clarification. Portions of their proposal are a flat fee. For these services, we're going to charge you X dollars. Portions of them are an estimate based on rate structures that they have in the proposal. And then they total it up and they come up with the $97,000. Is the $97,000 an estimate, or is that a not to exceed?
Well, the way that you can do this is, what they're proposing is an estimate of the fees based on the time that they project.
Okay, so that is not a cap.
And what I am recommending, or what we're recommending, and we discussed it with staff, was basically there's only one thing there that I wanted to add, because as Daniel says, there's a $97,000 there on the agenda item. I'm asking for $99,000 because there's an extra meeting that I think we may need to have. So we're making provision for an extra meeting on the $99,000.
Okay, so
that is a not to exceed amount of money.
Well, that's
cap on there.
Well, my question is, out of the $97,000, they show $63,000 as project representation, based on services. Now, suppose the project drags on an extra 2 months, and they have someone here an extra 2 months. Do we pay for them having that person here for 2 months? Or is the $97,000 a cap, where that's the most we will ever owe?
Well, I think what I would suggest is you make it a not to exceed amount. If they can't live with it, they'll tell us.
Okay.
Sounds good. Absolutely.
So,
we can.
And I'm not advocating one or the other, we need.
No, that's a very good point, because I was on the El Jardín Water Board when we constructed the water tower, like I said, the water tower from hell. And it finally got completed, but the people walked off the job. I mean, it went on and on and on, so it's a very
Experience the same thing, PUB experience. Now, those kinds of things are very unusual. I mean, I think in all fairness, if it's outside the scope of the project, and I mean, we'd have to sit down and evaluate it, but I mean, if this thing goes as proposed, where we're going to go out, prepare the design, the bid package, put it out for bid, select the contractor, move it through, and like it's supposed to work, then not to exceed $99,915. If in the middle of the project, the contractor, says, hey, I quit, that's kind of an extraordinary deal, but that has happened in the past.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
I think we're lucky in that contractor's no longer in business, but, I think if that were the case when we get bids, I think we need to evaluate very, very seriously that we certainly do not want to experience that again.
And that is one of the things that is mentioned in their evaluation, and is that they will be, they know the contractors that can do this work, and they know the people that are capable of doing what needs to be done.
And they will make a recommendation.
They will be integrally involved in the bidding process to make a recommendation of whoever they feel comfortable will be able to perform this work properly.
Mr. Chairman.
The motion includes the modification to not to exceed.
We will amend the motion, and I will amend my second to not to exceed the $99,000, which Commissioner Arambula has agreed to, and I have agreed to both amend our motion and my second, his motion and my second to for this to not to exceed the $99,000 that's in the.
Did you get that one thing?
We're approving it's not over $99,000 as it's in here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, with all the amendments, or the one amendment, are we? Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you all very much.
We got it. I just thought we ought to get that straight there so that on the record that's what we're doing.
We got it. Okay, very good.
Item 15, consideration and action to accept proposal from Ergonomic Transportation Solutions, Inc. for engineering services to prepare plans, specifications, and estimates for the Faust Road and Milo Road intersection realignment project.
Mr. Chairman, Board Commissioners, as you are aware, we engaged Ergonomic Transportation Solutions Incorporated, which is a company out of Houston, Texas. Mr. Harrison Benitez is here. He's an officer of the company. He's present. He presented, if you recall, the layout and the proposal for what we needed to do to fix our transportation and traffic patterns at Faust Milo intersection. We asked for him to provide a proposal to form the plans and specifications and estimates for the actual work. So he has presented a proposal, and that's what we have brought before you for the. Yes, here it is. We have a proposal of $20,000 for engineering services to prepare plan specifications and estimates for the Faust Road and Milo Road intersection realignment project. This includes some detailed corings that we need to get done to see exactly what the soil is there and get the proper section designed and lay everything out, prepare plans and specifications to go out for bids for that work.
Okay. Will they be doing any supervising on to ensure that the job was performed as designed? Included in the $20,742.45, and I realize the 45 cents is the profit.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to assist you. The services we have described are for the plan specifications and construction cost estimates. It does not include construction administration. Now, we can do that after we come up with a cost estimate of the construction costs. We can give you a proposal to do the supervision, depending what that dollar amount ends up being, because we don't know at this point what kind of pavement we're going to use for the widening part. So, I mean, that's going to be a little bit of a, not much of a variation, but typically that is a smaller percentage of the work.
We don't anticipate, this is not a difficult project. We're basically making permanent what we have out there. We've already, we made the presentation to the board, we made it at the committee level. And so it's really now.
Temporary stop signs and stuff already.
And the construction activity is going to be minimal. We can supervise that. I think that, you know, but we did say we need to get this done, and so we need to move it forward. So we don't anticipate, there's not a whole lot of construction in this deal, but, you know, the design is critical because of the fact that, you know, if you don't do it correctly according to standard, then you open up the liability. So we're going to want to finish the Faust Road redesign and get it done, and the striping and all that goes with it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Already got it.
Okay. Second?
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You're
Thank
quick
you.
on the draw today, Mr.
Item 16, consideration and action to approve the bid for crushed limestone.
There you
Bids
go.
were received on April 25th, 2012.
Sneaked in on me.
Mayor, Commissioners, we had received, or we had requested bids earlier this year. We've received no bids. We went out and asked again, we talked to Vulcan to make sure that they were on board with the process. They did submit a bid for us. They were our only bidder. Their bid was $13.25 per ton, and we have a maximum of 150,000 tons in this contract. And that is, if we pick it up, if we go and if they deliver it, they would add it $3.75 per ton. This compares to our last bid, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, that was $13 a ton.
So it's basically the same price it was before.
25 cents more a ton.
25 cents more.
It's not bad.
25
Not a bad
cents more than it was
increase.
3 years ago.
Typically, the increases have been about $2.
So moved.
Second. Move, second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Debbie.
Item number 17, adjournment to executive session.
Okay. We'll be adjourning into executive session. I got that
I'm going
right.
to get a cup of coffee while